This is chapter number 8, Devotional Paths to the Divine. The saints, the Sufi, all those whom we are going to talk, there are certain words which are going to come: moksha, salvation, moksha in Hindi, salvation in English. In Hindi, it's also called as mukti, sach ki prapti. So all this discussion is about attaining the moksha, the salvation. Jain, Bodh, or different Sufis or different saints, they have showed different path, different ways to get moksha. That is, if you are an individual, why you are an individual, why you have come to this life, what is the real truth of your being, what is the truth of this world, what is the truth after the life, how to get connected with the God, how to get connected with the God you love or want. Can you see Him? Is there any way to get Him? This is moksha, salvation. So we are talking about 8th to 18th century. So in between, if you see 1200 to 1556, 57, we have 1556, 57 from 1200, it's Delhi Sultanate. And most of the changes, it started from 8th century, 9th century onwards, and it continued and it grew actually till 18th. So Mughal Empire, various things happened. First thing is that if in your house only, if you see your mom, dad or Dadaji, doing rituals, they may be singing bhajans, they may be doing kirtans, they may be doing kavalis. So they may be sitting somewhere and they are moved into tears, that is crying badly, or somewhere sitting just chanting the names of their deity, their god. So this kind of situation you might have encountered. You have seen tasbih, Maulvi take tasbih and say Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Subhanallah number of times. And other Hindus, they do Ram, 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 Ram number of times. So this kind of intense devotion, that is crying because of love to God or devotion to God. So love to God, intense devotion, this is the legacy of what? This is what we have got from the love, the muhabbat, the pyar to the God we have got it from Bhakti movement. We have got it from Sufi movement. Bhakti movement and Sufi movement. If left hand side you see, these are people who are devoted, happy in Bhakti of God. Sufi movement, they just want to get connected with the God, Allah, any being, any God. So this actually evolved, changed since the 8th century. Now if you talk any Muslim, who is the supreme God? He'll say Allah. You go to any Sikh, they'll say Guru Granth Sahib and Guru Nanak Dev Ji and all the Gurus. And Hindu, there are different gods, but he may name say Ganesha, say Shiva, Durga Ji, Kali Mata. If you go to Bengal side, you'll get Kali Mata. So different deities, different gods are worshipped. So previously there were small places, small kingdoms, but in this small kingdom, people were worshipping some deities, some local deities maybe. Okay, deities means gods and goddesses combined. There is a single word for god and goddesses, and these are deities. So if someone is, or the group or the people is worshipping, but when the empire, Delhi Sultanate came, then the Mughal Empire came, empire people started talking together. People started going here and there. So the culture changed, and people got ideas. They shared ideas, and this was not only the idea about money or the power. It was the idea also about how do you worship God, what kind of God you worship, what is the way of worshiping. Because at that time the predominant or the main key concept was that you have taken birth, say for 70 years you will live, then you will die, okay, you will be cremated or buried. Now what will happen? Dehant, your dehant, that is deh means body, ant means end. So in Sanatan Dharma, Hindu Dharma, and mostly dharms of Indian subcontinent, that is, anyone is having a body and also a soul. A body is having a soul inside. So when the body dies, when the body ends, the soul remains. So soul finds another body and find itself there. Means keep inside that body for the next hopping. So this was quite a very popular culture, popular thought at that time. So birth, rebirth, birth, death, rebirth, birth, death, rebirth. So this is a circle going on and on and on. So this was a big belief that time. So good deeds, bad deeds, whatever you done, good or papa, punya, gunaha, acha kaam, all these were also come with you, or will be, this pap punya chakra or circle will also be there, right? So everyone you see here, at that time, there was also believed that people are not equal. That is, the person who has taken birth in noble family or high caste, he will be privileged. He will get whatever he wants, or he'll get more resources, more, say, status. But the others, that is high caste or nobility, the person or the kid will get all what he wants. Sampannata means being rich and being in a higher caste. But the others, they won't get anything. Means because they are not from the privileged society. So all these ideas, most of the people like, but many people, they don't find this idea better. They were quite uneasy of what are these kind of idea of rebirth, caste system, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. What is this? So the people who were uneasy, some of them went to Jain Dharma or Jain religion, some of them went to Buddhism. Because Jainism and Buddhism, the teaching was that this cycle of birth, rebirth and death, this cycle of pap and punya, good and bad deeds, it can be stopped. It can be broken. This cycle can be broken if you put your personal effort. That is, you can take sannyas, you can take a renunciation of everything, go somewhere, just think about God, meditate, etc. Okay? And these all things can be done. If you have personal effort, you have to work hard, you have to devote yourself. But there are other people also who thought in a different terms. They said the idea of the supreme God, that is whosoever you believe, the idea of the supreme God, like the Brahma, like any God, if you approach him, if you love him with all the devotion, that is what we are calling bhakti. So if you do proper bhakti, then the God will save you from these bondages of BDR, that is, here you see, Krishna ji, Lord Krishna is giving sermons, Upadesh to Arjun. So here he is Krishna Bhagavan, he is an incarnation of Vishnu, Krishna ji and Arjun, one of the Pandavas. So he is giving the idea of this bhakti, this exactly what we have just talked about. So it is being mentioned in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So it's a part of Mahabharata. Mahabharata. So these kind of ideas were taking place. Okay, some were happy with the Sanatan, some were not. Some went to Buddhism, Jainas. Some were using this idea of bhakti. So at that time, which the period we are talking about, initially three gods and goddess basically. Shiv Bhagavan, Shiv, and Durga ji, and Vishnu. So Shiva, Vishnu and Durga, these three were the key deities, means key god and goddess. Everyone was worshipping them, devoted to them, loving them. Okay, and what would happen if the small places are there? There were some personal or the only area related gods, but they were also treated as some or the other form of incarnation of these three only, or some or the other faces or shape of these three only. Shiva, Vishnu, Durga. They were identified as Shiva, Vishnu, Durga only. So in local levels, as I said, at that time Shiva, Vishnu, Durga were there, and this was also mentioned in various or written, because there were myths, there were things being written in certain stories, and the idea of how to worship these gods, Shiva, Vishnu, Durga, the way they should be worshipped, it was clearly been written in Puranas. Okay, also it was properly being laid out. Any devotee, it is possible, because because of the Puranas, that whoever is there belonging to any caste, any creed, any caste, okay, he can get the grace of God if he behave or he devote himself the way it is being said in the Puranas, right? In the Puranas. So this is how it get popular, and Buddhas and Jainas also adopted them. So these all, see, there are two movements we are talking about. Bhakti movement, and the second is Sufi. Sufi has come from the Iran part, Central Asia part, or the Bhakti movement in Indian subcontinent. It started from where? It started, all the names we will be talking about whenever we encounter these. So it started from 9th century. We started that it is 8th century till 18th century. So if you see Dadu in the north, it is 16th to 17th century, which is way far off than when actual started. So the everything started from south. Mannikava Sagar, 9th century. Ramanuja, 11th to 12th century. So everything initiated, or these Bhakti movement, they were rooted from the South India, right? Kerala, Tamil Nadu. Okay. So let me tell you, the 7th and 9th century, here this time, 7th to 9th century, that is around 600 to 800. It was various religious movements, various andolans, religious movements, it took place. And who led them? The Netritra, the leaders were Nayanars and Alvars. Nayanars, Alvars, they were groups, they were people. So Nayanars, they were those saints who were devoted to Lord Shiva, the middle one. Lord Shiva, this is N I am writing for Nayanars. And what about Alvars? Alvars were devoted to whom? Vishnu. I am writing Vishnu here on the leftmost picture. So Alvars, Vishnu. The Nayanars, Shiva. Alvars were Vaishnavites, Nayanars were Shivites or Shaivites. And in this Nayanars and Alvars, the important thing was everyone was there. Big community, small community, even the untouchables, Pulayyar, Panars, the untouchables, Achuts, The Ati Shudras were also there in Nayanars and Alwars. These Pulayyar and Panars. That is the specific thing you need to know, because mostly the religion is always thought of as Brahmanical or Brahmani. So Buddha, they were very critical about Buddhist and Jainas, whatever they preached. Because Buddhist and Jaina was not talking about any god. So they were very critical about what Buddhists and Jaina were doing. Okay, they only said Shiv Bhagwan, Vishnu Bhagwan, Shiv Bhagwan, Vishnu Bhagwan. They are the path of salvation, moksha, mukti. Right? So Alwar were saying, please worship this Vishnu Bhagwan. Nayanar saying, please worship Shiv Bhagwan. Okay. So how do this came up? They combined certain ideas. Do you remember Sangam Sahitya, Sangam literature? Madurai, I told you earlier. So there was a convention, and here the compilation of this Sangam literature was done. So here in the Sangam literature, there were various things. So they took out two things. One was love, the other was heroism. Heroism, veerta, pyar, love and heroism. So they added the idea of bhakti also, blended, mixed the ideas, love, heroism and bhakti. They combined it. That is the Nayanars and Alwars, right? So this was kind of a mixture. So these people would go to various places. Wherever they go, Ghumantu, wherever they go, they would write certain text or poem, and what dohe, we'll talk about them. So they were writing these, and whichever place they go, and whichever is the local deity there, like local god, and they would write for them, and also they will put music also. That is, they would sing it also, or made others to sing with proper music. If you know that whenever we listen to music, we get just ecstatic. So this is what where they write everything, mainly the poems and the geet, right? The songs, and that is how it propagated. Everyone was singing. Now I'll just talk about Nayanars and Alwars in detail, but before that, let me talk about this South India we were talking about, Bhakti movement. Here what happened, if you see, he is Manikkava Sagar. We'll just talk about him, Manikkava Sagar. So this is a bronze image of Manikkava Sagar. Shortly you will be knowing who was he. So in between this 10th and 12th century, the Chola and Pandya king, I told you the South, Chola, Chera, Pandya, three were there. So Chola and Pandya, these were what they did, because they knew that wherever these Nayanars and Alwars, they were going, and they were making people love them or have an idea of the Bhakti movement they were spreading. So Chola and Pandya, they made a temple and shrine on their names, these Nayanars and Alwars. Okay, temple and shrine, right? So this is the Bhakti movement. They wanted to combine or link this Bhakti movement with the temple puja, temple say worship. Okay, so they tried to strengthen the link or relationship between Bhakti tradition and temple tradition, right? So they also made them wrote. The people were writing the religious biography, dharmik jivaniya. These main Alwars and Nayanars, I'll just talk about them. The Cholas and Pandyas, they were encouraging to write hagiographies. Hagiography is what? Writing about the saint life, writing about their religious lives or the movement aspects. So let me tell you, this is hagiography. Okay, this is what is important. Nayanars and Alwars, let us see it. First is Nayanars. Nayanar, remember Shiv, they were worshipping Shiv. So they were around 63 Nayanars, 63, and they were coming from different caste. Potters, they were potters, They were untouchables. They were workers also, peasants, hunters, and soldiers, and Brahmins also were there, and the Sardars, chieftains, chief. So each and every category was there in Nayanars. So the main key Nayanars were Appar. I'm talking about the names of them. Sambandar, Sundarar. And I told you, you'll just know about Manikkava Sagar. So Appar, here you see, this is Manikkava Sagar. So Sundarar, Manikkava Sagar, Appar, and Sambadar. Talking about Alwar, there were 12 Alwars. 12 Alwars. Okay. All these backgrounds were there. They were also coming from different diverse background. And the best of them, or the people we know about in Alwars, are Periya Alwar, and his daughter Andal Alwar. And then Tondara Dippodi Alwar. Tondara Dippodi Alwar. Then Nammalawar. So these are the few four which were very prominent. We named them. So now these were the the names, etc. But what about whatever they compiled? Because basic thing we are talking about the songs and poems. Okay. So the compilation of Nayanar songs were done in two different sets. One is Tevaram. The other is Tiruvakkam. Tevaram and Tiruvakkam for Nayanars. When we come to Alwars, the name of the compilation of their songs were called as Divya Prabandham. What was the name of Alwar's song, this compilation? Divya Prabandham. For Nayanars, it's Tevaram and Tiruvakkam. For Alwars, it's Divya Prabandham. Okay, I hope you will remember this. So we were discussing about Bhakti movement and Sufi movement. In this, philosophy, Vichardhara, or ideas, whomsoever we are going to discuss, they have different views, different thoughts with respect to the religion, to God, and how to worship. So this Bhakti is a big word. If you see here, he is Adi Shankaracharya, Shankara. And he was one of the most influential, effective philosopher of our subcontinent. And he was born in Kerala. Today's Kerala, in the 8th century. 8th century we are talking about. What he said, his idea was idea of Advaita. And this is also called as the doctrine of the oneness. Doctrine of the oneness, Advaita. What does it mean? See, every individual, it's being understood that everyone has a soul inside it, Atma, and there is a supreme God. So the soul and the God, supreme God, the Almighty, the ultimate reality, they are one. That is, they will be one. That is the Advaita. Okay, supreme God, which is ultimate reality, and the person's soul, individual soul, is oneness. He believed in oneness of them. Adi Shankaracharya. He also said the Brahman is created by Brahma, of course, the ultimate creator, Brahma. This Brahman is written, but it is actually related to Brahma. Okay, who created this world, everything he created. He is the ultimate God, ultimate reality. And the Brahma, in terms of Shankara, the Shankaracharya, what he thinks about Brahma, the main creator, is formless, without any attributes. That is, it is Nirguna. Nirguna means no attribute. this Brahma has no attributes, no properties. Along with this, it is Nirakar. That is, it is formless. There is no form, there is no picture, there is no sculpture, no murti. He also thinks that the world in which we live, we talk about money, we talk about car and buildings, etc. Whatever was there at that time, it is Maya. It's an illusion. Illusion means something is not there, but you think that it is there. It's illusion. He also said the renunciation of the world. He said Tyag. Renunciation means leaving world, everything in the world, and just leave everything. And just follow the path of knowledge, to know, to understand. The path you choose. Drop everything, leave everything, and take the path in order to gain knowledge, in order to understand the things. And what is salvation? That is, what is the Brahma? Who is the creator? And this is the only path to get the salvation, to get the moksha, to get the mukti, to get the knowledge. So he said, leave everything, take the path in order to get the salvation, to know the Brahma. Now here we talked about Shankara, Adi Shankaracharya, Advaitwad. Now Ramanuja has a different idea. So his idea was Vishishtadvaitwad. He was born in Tamil Nadu in 11th century. Ramanuja born in Tamil Nadu in 11th century, and he was quite influenced by the Alvars. Did we talk about Alvars and Nayanars earlier? Alvars were those who were following or worshipping the Vishnu Bhagwan. So he said, Ramanuja said, if you want to get moksha, if you want to get salvation, then you can only do it through if you have intense devotion, love, affection for the God Vishnu. You worship God Vishnu. So Shankaracharya was giving the idea of Advaita, and Ramanuja was giving the idea of Vishisht Advaita. So Advaita, just add Vishisht in front of it. That is Vishisht Advaita. Advaita related to Shankaracharya, Vishisht Advaita related to Ramanuja of Tamil Nadu. Okay. So what was that? This is actually a qualified oneness. What does it qualified oneness means? Is that when your body's soul, everyone has a soul, that is what Sanatana Dharma says. So every soul, when it gets united with the Supreme God, the Almighty, it still remain distinct. Shankaracharya said they become one, but Ramanuja said the soul and the God, whenever they meet also, when you meet the God, your soul remain different. Your same soul remain distinct. Okay? And this became very popular in North India. I'll show each of one of them. We are talking now about Basavanna's Veerashaivism. Ramanuj, all these people we are talking about are from South. So everything started, this Bhakti movement all started from South. Basavanna. Now Basavanna and companions Allama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi, all these. Basavanna, Allama Prabhu and Akka Mahadevi, they all started a religious movement, a religious andolan, which was called as Veerashaiva movement, Veerashaiva movement. Basavanna, Akka Mahadevi, Allama Prabhu. And they started in present day Karnataka when in mid-12th century, around 1150 you can understand, mid-12th century. What they said? What was their idea? Their thought was, their advocation was that everyone is equal. All human beings are equal. They believe in the equality of human beings. And whatever Brahmins have decided, what are the Brahmanical ideas? They have caste system, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Okay, and that their treatment, this is the caste system. First of all, they were not advocating that. Second thing, the Brahmins, they treated women as a say, keeping up to the houses. They are not giving freedom, or they are not giving them that space. The women should get equality, right? They are 50% population. So Basavanna Allama Prabhu Akka Mahadevi said the women should be treated equally. Everyone should be treated equally, whether any caste, any creed, it doesn't matter. And the idol worship and rituals, all forms of ritual, karma kanda, idol worship, they were not in favor of. So we started with this also we have discussed, Naman Alwar we have discussed. We are talking about Ramanuja now. Ramanuja, 11th, 12th century. Ramanuja, here is Ramanuja, 11th, 12th century. 11th, 12th century. Then coming to Basavanna, 12th century. He was 12th century. This is around, right now it is Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. So previously it was not there. There was not very close these boundaries. We have created it. As I said, everything started from south, the Bhakti movement idea, and this paved its way from south to the other parts of India. So we are talking about, because Maharashtra is also coming in between. So Maharashtra in 13th century till 17th century, we saw a number of great, you can say the saint poets. Let me name them first. His name is Janeshwara. I am writing J. He is Janeshwar, the most important one I am talking about. Here we have Namadev. Here we have Eknath. Then Tukaram. And women were also there, like Sakkubai. And now the whole family of Chokha Mela family. So this Chokha Mela family we are talking about, because this family and these people, and Chokha Mela actually was belonging to a Mahar caste, and Mahar caste was untouchable, Achut caste, means the Ati Shudra, which was not considered as a part of the society, were the Chokha Mela. So let me tell you again, the most important great number of saint poems are these, which you see in the picture also. Remember them: Janeshwara, Namdeva, Eknath, Tukaram, Sakkubai, and the family of Chokha Mela. What was their idea? How their bhakti was? So their bhakti was basically devised was there is a place called Pandharpur. So how the Vishnu was praised or worshipped there in Pandharpur, Vithala. Vitthal is actually a name of Vishnu only. So the regional tradition, what was being followed in Pandharpur, that is how their idea of bhakti was. There is one more thing. They were saying that every person has in their heart a God. This is heart I am making. Every person has a God inside his or her heart. Okay. So two things, the way the old tradition, how the Pandharpur was following the bhakti, and heart. Everyone is in heart. So these saint poems, basically they were saint but poets also. They were writing, they were giving music, and people were, singing it. So these saint of Maharashtra, first of all the religious things, like Karma Kand, and someone is dying, someone is taking birth, and all rituals are taking place. And they were very much against it. And second thing is outward display of piety. Piety means showing the level, status, cleanliness. I am like this, I am like that. So this immense display was not being accepted by them. Also, because the social differences were there, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. So, if everyone who is having a birth, there should be no social differences on the basis of birth. Because Brahman can become Kshatriya, Kshatriya can become Brahman, all these good people can become because of various different Ved, different yagya. So they were rejecting the idea of renunciation. Renunciation means tyag, leaving everything. They just said, work, have family, have kids, live a life like what normal people do. Okay, that is, if you see any person who is having a problem, help them. Humanist approach you have to follow. Manavtavadi approach you have to follow. Serve everyone who is in need. That is, these saints of Maharashtra were saying. And they insisted, they were saying that if the bhakti, actual bhakti in their advocacy or thought was, actual bhakti is sharing the pain of others, doing the care, love for those who really need it, who really have problem, poor people, ill people, everyone you have to love them and care. Now this was advocated by Narsingh Mehta also. This was also being said by Narsingh Mehta. He was also a great son, but he belonged to Gujarat. He said the Vaishnavas. Who are Vaishnavas? Vaishnavas are those individuals or people who are having faith in the God and who are considered to be the good people. Good people, Vaishnava people, good people have faith in God. So those who can be termed as Vaishnavas are those who understand the pain of others, who have the understanding of the problem which others face. Okay. So Narsingh Mehta, we know Gandhiji. Gandhiji actually propagated it. That is how we know this bhajan. Vaishnava jan to tene kahiye je, पीड़ पराई जाने रे, पर दुखे उपकार करे तो ये मन अभिमान न आने रे. That is, those people are called Vaishnav who actually feel from inside, their heart says that okay, this is the pain the other person is feeling. And if you are doing some help, if you are helping some person who is in misery, who has some problem, then never have that self-conceit, that is, never feel that, oh, I have done this, I have done that. No abhiman should come. So let me show you these Janeshwar, 13th century, and Basavanna, after Basavanna, Janeshwar came. Then came Namadeva, 13th and 14th century. Then Tukaram and Eknath, both in 16th century. Okay. And Narsingh Mehta we talked about, he came in 15th century, Narsingh Mehta. So what you see here, this is the bhajan, as I said, our Mahatma Gandhi, our Rashtrapita, he used to chant this bhajan. That is how we know this so popularly. Nathpanthis, Siddhas and Yogis. Now let me just relate it to you. Do you know who is the right now Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh? Yogi Adityanath. Yogi Adityanath is Nathpanthi. Okay? Nathpanthi. Actually, he has taken the place of the major Nathpanthi, the establishment. Coming to Patanjali Baba, you remember him? Ramdev Baba. He is actually a Baba, but he is selling things. He is yogi. So he is a yogi, supposedly yogi. Then Siddhas, those who are Siddhachari. So all these three we talked about, they were either doing some meditation, doing some yoga, doing some, asanas, exercises, breathing exercises. Okay. So they were wearing, either not wearing, right now they wear Bhagwa. You see a Yogi Adityanath and Ramdev, they always wear Bhagwa, orange dress. So these people, Nathpanthis, Siddhacharis and Yogis, they have, because at that time Brahmanical ideas of or Brahmanical institution of thoughts were not accepted by everyone. So these NSY, they also didn't believe it. The conventional religion, the Sanatan basic religion, they were not accepting it. Or they were saying that, okay, we have some logical arguments, Just tell us why this has to be done, why this not had to be done. Okay. So they were asking questions. NSY, they were asking questions. Nathmanti, Siddhacharis and yogis. So this NSY, they said, we don't like this Brahmanical ideas, or some of them we like, some of them we don't like. So they say, if you want moksha, if you want salvation, if you go to Rishikesh, you see there are hundreds of tourists which are coming there, and they stay there for months and months. You know why? Because here they come for moksha, in the search of salvation, in the search of mukti, getting knowledge. So what these NSY were saying that the idea to get salvation, because the God is formless for them. There is ultimate God, ultimate reality, but it is formless. It has no shape. And how do you want to realize this oneness, or say with ultimate reality do you want to connect to the God? In order to do that, you can be trained for it, but you have to train it, your mind and your body. That is, you can get the God, you can meet the God by doing intense training of both mind and body. How to get this? For that you have to do yogasanas. That is some form of exercise. Yogasana. Pranayam. Pranayam is breathing exercise. Then you have to do meditation. Sit and relax and just don't think about anything. Don't think about anything. That is meditation. So these all are sitting here. They are just meditating and doing different forms of yoga, doing exercises, breathing exercises. And most of them were lower caste. Very popular it became in low caste. Because they were very critical about the Brahmanical and critical religion which was going on. Okay. So that is how this became very popular in northern India. Yogi Adityanath, this Patanjali Baba, all are from northern India. Coming to Islam and Sufism. First of all, we talked about this Sant, mostly from the Hindu or Hindu sect religion, right? They were talking about different gods, deities, and they were not following, or they are arguing that what is correct, what is not, right? They gave their own philosophy and ideology. Sufis, exactly like this, were Muslims. So they also feel that this Islam has something which we don't believe. They don't believe. Okay. So they were coming from, Sufis were Muslim mystics, Muslim believers, Muslim thought they have, but religion, all these religious things, they just rejected. They just said that love and devotion, dedication to God, these two things along with help to the people, working for the people, loving people, human beings, your fellow human beings. So this is the idea, love God and help. This is what they think is the ultimate way to get the God, to see the God, to meet the God. Okay. So Islam is a very good religion. It propagated so fast because it gave us a very good idea. It's a very clean religion. If you read it, you'll love this. Like the Sikhism, it's a very good religion. So first thing is, Islam was saying monotheism. Monotheism is single God. Monotheism. Mono, single, atheism. So one God is there. Only one God. Okay. There is no other God. Submission to just one God, Allah. Allah Pak. Pak Parvardigar. They rejected the idol worship, Murti Pujan, worshipping the stones, or because everyone makes through his feeling, through his worship, the stone as God. But they said no, this is what we don't want. And that is, see, Islam has done what? First rejected this idol worship, and it has simplified the religion. That is, just people come and 5 times they just do the prayers. Collective prayers. So Islam made the religion quite easy. Okay. So if you see people living, they are following Islam, there will be people who might fight, who may do shadi or marriage. So if the people live, there has to be certain rules and regulation that has to be made. So the good people, the scholarly or the intelligent people, they made laws, rules and regulation, and these rules and regulation are called Shariat. It is called Shariat. Most of the Muslim countries, if you see, they follow Shariat. The Sufis said, no. First of all these rituals you are doing, all this karm kand in Muslim religion, we don't want it. We outrightly reject it. First is this. Muslim Sharia. Second thing is Muslim Sharia, which was propounded by these Muslim scholars, big intelligent people, Muslim intelligent people. They said, no, whatever these Muslim religious scholars are asking, we also don't advocate it. So Sharia we don't want, we don't like it, and also these religious rituals which we have to do, I don't want. So they wanted the love to the God, the affection to the God should be like this, the way you love your women, you love your girl, you love your boy, that is premi premika, lovers, the way they love, the intense love they show, that love should be the love for the God. That is, just leave the world, love your lover, and your lover is now God. So all these Sufis which we know and the saints we know, why they became popular? Because they were writing poems, they were composing poems, they were also singing and other people were singing. So they were also doing these anecdotes and fables. Anecdotes means small stories. Fables means making stories. That is, story which is not true, but it is, you have created it. So they made it. Anecdotes also and fables also, and small stories, and some as is story which gives you some good idea. So this Central Asia, Iran area, nearby area, there were Sufis, like they came and settled in different part of our country, Indian subcontinent. Ghazali, Rumi and Sadi, they were three prominent. Let me show you the picture so that you understand them well. Ghazali, Rumi and Sadi. So they came, and the Nathpanthi, NSY, I was saying, NSY, all these have their idea that we can be trained, heart can be trained. Sufis were also saying, yes, in order to get the God, we can be trained. We can train your heart, we can train the heart in order to get the love from the God, or to get connected to the God, right? To see the world in different way. So there is some peer or master or some teacher, you can call them peer or master. So they will teach us zikr. Zikr means taking the name of your God or your priyatam or your lover. Zikr. Chanting of sacred formula like Subhanallah, Subhanallah, or Ram, 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 like this. And contemplation is to think in that way. Sama means singing. Raqs means dancing. See here, everyone is dancing, everyone is doing zikr and contemplating. Then we have discussion of parables. Parables means your ideas, drishtant, thinking in your way. Discussion of parables about what you think. And then breath control, like we just talked about NSY, pranayam, etc. This is breath control. Okay. So zikr, contemplation, sama, raqs, parables, breath control, all are done under the master or a peer. And these masters, different masters, because people started believing them, following them, so they formed different sect called as silsila. So some go to this Sufi, they have a silsila. Some go to some other Sufi, they have a silsila. So silsila of different cities. Silsila means a chain. One Sufi came, then another Sufi of that particular sect belief came, this peer came. So this is a kind of a chain or genealogy, you can say. It's a silsila. So all these silsila have a different tarika or way. The other silsila will have a other tarika of doing all these forms. So as I said, from Central Asia, that is the Iran and nearby part, they came from Central Asia, settled in our Indian subcontinent in 11th century. So at this time, mostly why they came, because Delhi Sultanate was establishing. Because we were connected, first Delhi Sultanate, then Mughal Empire, we were quite connected to the Middle East area or Central Asia. If you talk about Qutub Minar, see, the name is Qutub. This has come from some Sufi only. So one of the main silsila in the Indian subcontinent, which became very popular, very influential, very important, was Chishti silsila. Chishti silsila. Silsila means one by one, the Peer came, Sufis came, that is silsila. So here we have different Chishtis, Khwaja Gharib Nawaz, Moinuddin Chishti. Then we have, this is Ajmer. Then second one is Qutubuddin Bakhtiyar Kaki of Delhi. Then we have as I said, Qutub Minar is made on his name only. Then we have Baba Farid, very popular in Punjab still, and Khwaja Nizamuddin Auliya of Delhi. Then we have Banda Nawaz Gesu Daras of Gulbarga, Karnataka. So these Sufi masters we are talking about, like Baba Farid, you can take example. Baba Farid will take an example. So Baba Farid will sit somewhere, have an assembly, have a sabha, and people would come. These places where the sabha or the assemblies were done were called as khanqahs or hospices, khanqahs or hospices. And here royalty means the king emperor would come. Here also, say, the nobility or big people would come, and also the ordinary people will also come, and they will sit in the khanqa. They will discuss about something spiritual. Some would come only for the blessings, say for Baba Farid, some would come for the blessings, and some would come only to attend the dance and music, because Sufi is all about dance and chanting the names and being in love with your God. So what happened? Some people would think that this Baba Farid and other is having miraculous power. They are just like Jadugar. They are like they have some immense power that if somebody is ill or somebody is having troubles in their life, if we go to them, they will give the blessing, and our troubles will be relieved. We'll get relief from our illness. So all these shrines which you see, the name I gave you, this tomb or dargah or the shrines, these places have now become pilgrimage. Pilgrims go here, Ajmer Sharif. Most of the people go to Ajmer Sharif. Even the big politicians, big superstars, whenever they are releasing their movie, they go to Khwaja Gharib Nawaz, Moinuddin Chishti. Also some go to Baba Farid, some go to Gulbarga. So it's a kind of a Tirth place now. That is, religious tourism places now they are. They have become so important because it gives you an idea or love that people want. New religious developments in North India. Till now, we have talked about the South India because everything started from there, Bhakti movement. Then we came to Maharashtra. Then also we went to Gujarat, Narsi Mehta. Now this north area, which is you can say of Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, UP, etc., Bihar somewhat. So we are talking about 13th century, and in this time, in this period, North India, the Bhakti movement saw a very halchal, new wave of this Bhakti movement here. Because what happened? All these religion, that is Islam, Hinduism, Sufism, different sects, the different groups of Bhakti, the Nathpanthis, the Siddhacharis, Yogis, they were influencing each other, or they were getting ideas from one another, taking the other ideas. So they were taking and giving certain things. And when these things was happening, the new towns were taking place, People were taking different professions. They are finding different roles for themselves. So these things were happening. So all these people, we have different roles, and the bhakti movement was taking place. The craftsperson, specifically the craftsperson, the peasants, the traders, the daily wage laborers, they would come to these people and try to listen to them. They will throng, they will come in groups and listen to these new ideas, new vichar. And these, whatever they get, they spread it all over. So they spread it all over. So I'll give an example of these saints at that time. Kabir, the rightmost you see is Kabir Das. And here we have Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And what was common between them was that they were against, they rejected all the things which are happening in an orthodox way. Right? Orthodox means those which cannot have, which have no logic. It can be Hindu religion, it can be Muslim religion, Islam religion. So whatever orthodox things were going on, or those things which have nothing to logic, they outright rejected. But on the other hand, Tulsidas and Surdas, they were accepting the beliefs. They were saying the existing beliefs of the Hinduism or the Brahmanical Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, is okay. They accepted it. They accepted it. But they wanted to make all these accessible, available to everyone, because the Sanatan or Brahman have made it very specific for the upper caste, not for the lower caste. Brahman Kshatris were getting everything, but not the other ones. Now Tulsidas, he thought of a god in the form of Ram Bhagwan. Ram Bhagwan. Ram is supposed to be the incarnation of Vishnu. Krishna ji is also supposed to be the incarnation of Vishnu ji only. So Tulsidas made a composition. He wrote something, and it was the epic, the Ramcharitmanas, and he wrote this in Awadhi. Awadhi is the language which is spoken in eastern Uttar Pradesh. That is, if this is a vague map of this Uttar Pradesh, the rightmost part you can say, and the Awadhi, because it was a local language, that is why it became so popular. Ramcharitmanas. And it was a very, epic work, good literary work. And if I can show you this Surdas, he was a very utsahi, very happy devotee of ardent devotee of Krishna ji, Krishna Bhagwan. So he has a, because first thing is he can't see, he was a blind, but still he wrote Sursagar, Sur Saravali and Sahitya Lahari. Sursagar, Sur Saravali and Sahitya Lahari, it was the composition of Surdas ji. And here at the same time, the contemporary, that is the same time, in Assam, we had a great man, a great sant, Shankara Dev ji. In Assam, we have Shankara Dev ji. It was around late 15th century, you can imagine. Shankara Dev ji of Assam. And he was devoted to Vishnu. So he spread that, he preached that devotion to Vishnu is what you should do. He was devoted to Bhagwan or God Vishnu, right? And for that he composed, very epic, good, easy poems and plays in Assamese, the language which was popular there, Assamese. And he started a practice, new practice, and that was the practice of Namaghars. Namaghar. That is, ghar means house. So Namaghar means the place or a house where a recitation or saying will go. People will recite whatever poem is there. They will recite. They'll speak it or sing it. Also the prayers. So there is a place, houses of recitation and prayer, and this practice, Namghar, if you go to Assam right now, you'll see this practice still exists, still continues. And all these traditions we are talking about, here we have Dadu Dayal. He is Dadu Dayal. And here we have Ravidas ji also and Mirabai ji. Mirabai ji. So the Mirabai ji is quite famous. Why we are talking about her? And Mirabai was a beautiful Rajput princess. And she was married to Bhojaraj. Mirabai was married to Bhojaraj. And Bhojaraj was the son of Rana Sanga. Rana Sanga, the family, that is Rana Sanga was actually Mewad's, Chittorgarh, Mewad king. He was a chieftain there. But finally what happened? Mirabai has become the Anuyai, disciple or Bhakt of Ravidas. Bhakt of Ravidas. And as I said, it was 16th century when she got married to Bhojaraj, but she became the Shishya or disciple of Ravidas. Ravidas was Achyut. He was from Ati Shudra caste, Ravidas, Pandit Ravidas. So, and what she did, she was devoted to Krishna ji. Krishna is a Bhagwan, is a god in Hindu mythology and Sanatan Dharma. So Krishna Bhagwan devoted to, and she was saying, Krishna is husband, Krishna is my friend, Krishna is my everyone. So she was in love with Krishna ji. And because of this bhakti, this love, she wrote innumerable number of bhajans. She just wanted to express her love, devotion, dedication, determination for her. So this is Ranas. If you see this Rana Sanga she is talking about, that she was being given zahar she was given, but still she survived. This is what happened. She was tried to be killed. And as I said, the upper caste, she was openly challenging the upper caste, the bigger caste, because she was also from the bigger caste, the higher caste. And the bhajan she wrote, it became so popular. We go to masses in Rajasthan and Gujarat, it's still popular, right? Meera ho gayi magan, this kind of things are there. So the popularism of these saints have their back from the point that they were just these poems were transferring from one generation to another through oral transmission. And how this is? Because they were composing it in natural language, regional language. So the poorest, the most deprived communities which were not knowing Sanskrit, they were just knowing the local language, the poorest, the marginalized communities like the Ati Shudra, etc., the women, they transmitted, they propagated, they also added their experience. So this is a living popular culture which we have right now. Kabir Das. We are talking about Kabir Das. Now Kabir Das was a very influential saint in 15th century, 15th, 16th century, this time. And he was quite influential. The term that his content is used somewhere. I'll tell you right now. First of all, the story is a woman who doesn't want to, have this child or to raise this child, gave her child to a Muslim family, Muslim Julaha family, weavers near Banaras, Varanasi. So here he grew up. Now we didn't have much idea about him, but the idea which we have is from the Sakhis and Pads. These are all form of writings. So the vast big collection of the verses of Sakhis and Pads, this is what we have to know him, to understand him. And these were sung often by the bhajan singers, which propagated it. The effective thing which he wrote It was so popular, so well respected. In Guru Granth Sahib, they were taken. It's very poised, very respected book of Sikhism. Not even in Guru Granth Sahib, in Panchavani and Bijak also, his content is there. So Kabir Das' teaching was basically based on indeed vehement. That is, he was in full force. He was rejecting for both, not only for Hindu but Muslims also. So he was rejecting all the major religious traditions which were going on. That is, people showing outside they are big, we can do this, and these are the things you have to do. In Muslims also the same thing. So they are people who are showing priestly classes. They are bigger. We are priests. We are a higher caste, and they have created the caste system: Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, Ati Shudra. So he just outright rejected all these. The important thing was the language of his poetry was spoken English. That is spoken Hindi. Sorry. Because everyone was able to understand it. And one more thing, he used to write in a cryptic language, that is Rahasyavadi language. Those who actually know the language, you can say literature, scholars, they will only understand what he has written. So that is why he is so popular and well respected. Kabir believed in a supreme God. There is a Nirakar, that is formless, there is no form of the God. But there is a Shakti, there is a supreme God. And if you want to get, or if you want to have salvation or moksha, then that is only possible through bhakti or devotion. Bhakti or devotion. So Hindu Muslim all were respecting him and following him. So let me just conclude that Kabir Das was 15th century Indian mystic poet, and he was a great saint. And his writings were affected or has influenced the Hinduism's Bhakti movement, and his content verses are used in Guru Granth Sahib. He started his early life in a Muslim family, but finally he was so influenced by Hindu Bhakti leader Ramanand that he became his follower. So he got his teachings from him, Ramananda. Baba Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Sikh religion is you know, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the time is 1469 to 1539. And Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he was born at Talwandi. Talwandi is now in Pakistan. Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. Again, Guru Nanak Dev Ji was born at Talwandi, which is right now Nankana Sahib in Pakistan. He traveled widely, different places, giving his preaching and sermons, and finally he settled down in Kartarpur. This corridor was opened just by Pakistan. That is a very good gesture to India by Pakistan. Thank you for them. And Kartarpur, which is the Dera Baba Nanak on the river Ravi Nadi. So Dera Baba Nanak on the river Ravi, Kartarpur. That is where he taught his followers how you need to worship. That is the regular worship way. And he made them sing, or he was telling them, and others were following him to sing his own hymns. So the hymns were sang, what he has written. So this was, if you go to Gurdwara now, you can see that singing is going on. And the basic was, whatever caste, creed, gender you belong, it doesn't matter. In Gurdwara, in Sikhism, everyone is welcome. Okay? So everyone was coming to the place and they were eating at the same common kitchen, and that is called as langar. Langar is every Gurdwara has langar, where Sikhs, they make arrangement to feed people. Okay, so these sacred space where this langar is also there, kitchen is also there, and Guru Nanak Dev created this place, and that was previously called as Dharmasal, but it became Guru Ka Dwar, Gurdwara. So now it is Gurdwara. Okay, Gurdwara. If you go, you will see Guru Granth Sahib, and it is, you can see that all are sitting and the hymns are being sung. Langar is also there. So before Guru Nanak Dev Ji's death, that is the last time of his life, there were various followers. One of the followers, and he was appointed, his name was Lahana. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji himself appointed Lahana as his successor. Lahana as a successor. And Lahana was later known as, now we know him as Guru Angad Ji. Why? Because Angad means the part of the body. Anga means the part of the body. So the body is Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and Guru Angad is the part of Guru Nanak Dev Ji. That is why the Guru Angad name is there. Now Guru Nanak Dev Ji did what? First of all, Guru Nanak Dev Ji, he had a lot of composition. He wrote various things. So Guru Angad Ji compiled this content of Guru Nanak, and he also added his own content with a new script. He wrote that in a new script, which you see in the left, and that is called Gurumukhi. That is called Gurumukhi. This is a new script like Devanagari, etc. So we started with Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and there his successor is Guru Angad Dev Ji. After these three successors, Amar Das Ji, Ram Das Ji, and Arjan Dev Ji. Okay, so these all, they also wrote in on the name of Nanak only. So all their composition were finally compiled, Sankalan, by Guru Arjan Dev Ji in 1604. So Guru Nanak, Angad, Amar Das, Ramdas and Arjan Dev Ji, all the composition were compiled 1604. Also along with this, later on, Sheikh Baba Farid, Sant Kabir Ji, Bhagat Namdev Ji, Guru Tegh Bahadur, 9th Guru. Guru Tegh Bahadur, 9th Guru. So their writings, their composition were also added in this final compilation. The composition were added. So let me tell you, all those previous, before Arjan Dev Ji and Tegh Bahadur Ji, and then Sheikh Farid, Sant Kabir, Bhagat Namdev and Guru Tegh Bahadur. And it was, because it was the son of Guru Tegh Bahadur Ji, Guru Govind Singh Ji, he authenticated it, Pratipadan kiya, and this was all combined way. There was a book being made, and that holy book of Sikhism is Guru Granth Sahib. Guru Granth Sahib. And this is the holy, very, very pure scripture of the Sikhism. Now, Guru Nanak Ji, actually, his follower increased through 16th century. Because he was so popular, he has a very nice, appearance, ambience. So everyone was following him, and not only his way of teaching, but the traders, agriculturists, artisans, craftspersons, they were many. They predominated his followers. Because Guru Nanak Dev Ji said that whatever way you are living, live like this. That is, marry, have kids, do good jobs, take good jobs, productive and useful occupations you take. And you have to take that occupation so that you can help others. You think of others, you help others. This is what, and some general fund has to be given. That is how the langar, how this langar will work if people don't pay. So this is Harminder Sahib. If you see, people are eating here, and this is what is made here in big, utensils, kitchen utensils. So the fund is coming from those who come and give these funds. Now, I'm talking about now the politics when it came. I'm talking about 17th century. Amritsar, today's Amritsar, Ramdaspur it was. So Ramdaspur and now Amritsar. Amritsar, you can understand like them, Amritsar. So this is the central Gurudwara, which is Gurudwara Harmandir Sahib. This is a golden temple. If you see, you can see the golden paint. This is the golden temple, and this was the center epicenter of various activities going on. So this area, Amritsar area, this comes in Mughal Empire, and this was a part which was self-governing. It is not governed by the Mughals. They were self-governing themselves. Okay. When this was seen by Jahangir, here is Jahangir on the left. So when Jahangir saw this, that in our empire there is another empire they are taking, so he ordered execution of Guru Arjan Dev Ji, and it happened in 1606. So Sikh movement then took up, and it got politicized, and then it finally concluded in creation of Khalsa, and it was created by Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. Guru Ji da Khalsa, Guru Ji di Fateh. Okay. So this, who instituted it? Guru Gobind Sahib, Guru Gobind Singh in 1699. That is the Khalsa Panth. Khalsa Panth is a political entity. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji, why he was so popular? Why Sikhism is so popular? Because first of all, he was in the way or in the view of worshipping one God. And the caste, creed, gender, they have nothing to do if you want to attain liberation, moksha, salvation. You can be from any point in the world, or whichever creed you have. And he wanted everyone to live the active life. Means help others, work, have kids, and also do social. You have certain social commitment. That is, you have to work for the needy. You have to work for the people. And there were only 3 words. He summarized everything. Naam, Dan, Isnan. Naam japana, Kirat karna, Vand chakna. What does it mean? Naam means worshipping the God name. Dan means welfare of others, help others. Whatever happens anywhere, first people you will find is sick people. Okay. Then Isnan is not only of taking bath. It's about clean heart, cleanliness of the body, of mind. So as I said, this Naam Dan Isnan is Naam Japna, Kirat Karna, Vand Chakna. We say Vand Chakko ji. So basic idea is clean, right belief, clean and right worship, honest living, no jhutapan, and help others. And if you compare it with the medieval century, Kabir Das, Ravidas ji and Dadu Dayal ji, the ideas are similar. This is Khalsa Panth. Same time, 16th century, Martin Luther, he had certain ideas. He thought and experienced certain things. Martin Luther, he saw in Christianity, because he was from 1483 to 1546, Martin Luther, what he saw, that in Roman Catholic Church, there are certain practices which are wrong, which are not given in the teaching, or which are done against the teaching of the Bible. Because Bible is like Guru Granth Sahib or of Sikhism. So Bible, Roman Catholic, they were not following. For example, example is indulgences. That is, if you have done something wrong, you have killed someone, you have done burglary, or said jhoot, fareb, you just go to church, you give money to the Roman Catholic Church, everything will be fine. Is it good? You will get forgiveness from sins if you have money. And that is Martin Luther King objected. He protested. That is why Protestant came. So at that time the printing process were evolving, and he used them very judiciously. All what his teachings were, writings were, he converted them to the local language, or wrote them in the local language, because most of the content was in Latin and translated into Bible, into German also. So if you see, the way is like this, Catholic was going on, but at this point the Protestant, they took another turn, because they were against the popular culture or popular way the religion was conceived at that time. So these Martin Luther King and Protestant, they have certain ideas common. So this is all about this chapter. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself.